So, do you want to know what is the most feared weapon? It's actually a psychiatrist with a loaded prescription pad. It's a funny quote, isn't it? But it's so true. But I didn't make it up. I took it out of this booklet and I've put the link on it. This is for the documentary that I've been telling you about, which I think is absolutely vital information. I think it's on the line of The Sound of Freedom. You know, do you remember when that movie, The Sound of Freedom, was being promoted? It was about a year or a couple of years ago, and there were so many people who did not, well, so many people of vested interest who did not want that film shown. And I think we have a similar situation there where we have this very, very important documentary which is blowing the lid on what's happening with the drugging of children and adults right now. So yeah, the most feared weapon is actually a psychiatrist with a loaded prescription pad. In American, you call it a loaded RX pad. I actually had to look up what RX meant. And apparently it's an abbreviation of a Latin word, which means recipe. So the Americans call it RX pad and we call it a prescription pad. But anyway, I'm going to read you a little quote, a little thing. You can download this because it's really interesting. And then you can go and watch the documentary. So look at any package insert of any psychiatric drugs. And I've shown you some already in my other posts. Because don't forget, we're here, we've got to solve the problem of education, and we're not going to solve this if we have drugged children. We're just going to get zombies and our whole civilization is going to collapse. We don't want that. You know, we don't want the 1984 Brave New World business, although it's going that way. Anyway, I digress. So look at any package insert of any psychiatric drug and you will see a long list of gruesome side effects. On many of these inserts, prominently listed are aggression and hostility. No one can tell who will or won't experience suicidal and violent thoughts and actions too often induced by psychiatric drugs. One common adverse effect is depersonalization. This feeling of disassociation and detachment can open the door to some extremely sudden and violent acts. One killer on these drugs described his murderous thought process as, quote, "It wasn't a want to, it was a need. I had to," unquote. No longer is it only criminals or psychotics randomly killing others. Murders are now being committed by husbands, mothers, friends, and total strangers under the spell of psychiatric drugs. Very often the kind of people you would never think capable of it. And by the way, that documentary really goes into that. The most people that just wouldn't have never done that. But under the influence of the drug drives them nuts. As simple as that. More than 280 million people around the world are prescribed psychiatric drugs despite 100 international regulatory warnings citing violent and suicidal behavior as possible side effects. I mean, you have to take 3 steps back and just look at that. It is absolutely known by governments. It's known by, same with the NHS, National Health Service in our area. It is absolutely known. And yet it is day in, day out, 24/7, 365 days a year. It is being used and given to people. And children, as I've posted in my other videos, well under 5 years old. You're looking at 18-month-old babies. I mean, I don't know how people can even, I don't know how parents can even conceive that there's something wrong with the children at 18 months old. So all I can think of is the advertising or the conviction by some experts, quote unquote, that the kid is wrong, gets the parent to do it. But I can't quite work out how any parent would actually be willing to bring the child to be drugged. I mean, an 18-month-old is a baby, Anyway. But despite all that, it does not stop psychiatrists from reaching for the prescription pads again and again and again. And it says here, during a 9-year period, psychiatric drugs have caused violent reactions in an estimated 1.4 million cases, equivalent to 1 act of drug-induced violence every 3 minutes. Yeah, definitely go and watch the documentary.